Summer rain drummed against the windows of Rosewood Cafe, a small polished haven tucked into Boston's financial district. Inside, pendant lights cast a warm glow over marble tables and exposed brick, the air thick with the scent of fresh espresso and butter. Haley Bennett paused just inside the door, her 5-year-old daughter Charlotte clinging to her hand. Both were damp from the downpour, droplets sliding from Haley's worn blazer while Charlotte's blonde pigtails sagged, heavy with rain. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Charlotte whispered, tugging at her sleeve. "I know, sweetheart." Haley scanned the packed cafe. Every table was taken except one in the corner, occupied by a single man in a charcoal suit, eyes pinned to his laptop. Dark hair, just starting to gray at the temples, clean jawline, severe expression. The kind of man who looked like he belonged in these glass towers, unlike her. "Just a minute," she murmured, adjusting the frayed tote bag on her shoulder, the one stuffed with resumes and her portfolio. Another interview done, another rejection hovering in the subtext. Third this week. Rent in 5 days, her bank account nearly empty, and she really couldn't justify a meal here. But Charlotte needed to eat, and the rain outside had turned the streets into rivers. Haley drew a breath and crossed to the corner table. The man didn't look up, fingers flying across the keyboard as though the rest of the world didn't exist. "Excuse me," she said, almost lost in the buzz of conversation and clatter. She cleared her throat, tried again. "May I share this table?" He looked up then, blue eyes sharp and assessing. His gaze moved from Haley to Charlotte, who had half hidden herself behind her mother's legs, then back to Haley. He studied her for an uncomfortably long beat, as if running calculations in his head. "Only if I pay the bill," he said, his deep voice carrying an unspoken expectation of compliance. Heat rushed to Haley's cheeks. "That's not necessary. We can pay for our own meal." "I insist." He closed his laptop, extended his hand. "Daniel Westbrook." Haley hesitated before taking it. "Haley Bennett. And this is Charlotte." He gestured to the chairs. "Please, sit." Reluctantly, Haley helped Charlotte into a chair and slid into the seat opposite him. It felt wrong to accept, like stepping onto a chessboard without knowing the rules. But pride wouldn't feed her daughter. A waitress appeared. Daniel ordered a coffee, then looked expectantly at them. "Chicken nuggets and apple juice, please," Charlotte said, suddenly shy but decisive. "I'll have a small salad," Haley added, choosing one of the cheapest items on the menu. Daniel's brow lifted. "Add a club sandwich to the lady's order," he told the waitress. "I didn't ask for a sandwich," Haley said, a flicker of irritation surfacing. "You look like you need more than a salad," he replied, matter of fact. "The interview didn't go well." Haley stiffened. "How did you?" "Portfolio bag," he said calmly. "Formal clothes that have seen a few too many interviews." The look of someone trying not to look disappointed. He gave a small, indifferent shrug. "I read people. It's my job." "And what job is that exactly?" Haley asked, trying to regain some footing. "I run Westbrook Industries." He said it as if it should mean something. It did. The name snapped into place in Haley's mind. One of the East Coast's largest property development firms. Skyscrapers, luxury condos, entire blocks stamped with their logo. Including, she realized with a jolt, the building where she'd just been turned down. "You're that Westbrook," she blurted. A faint smile teased the corner of his mouth. "The very same." Charlotte, who had been listening quietly, suddenly chimed in. "My mommy is the best graphic designer in the whole world." Daniel turned his gaze to her, and his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Is that so?" "Uh-huh." Charlotte nodded hard. "She makes pretty pictures for computers, but nobody wants to hire her because they're stupid." "Charlotte," Haley scolded, though a reluctant smile broke through. "Well," Daniel said to the little girl, "I'd say the people who passed on your mom may have made a mistake." He looked back at Haley. There was a new sharpness in his attention. "Graphic design. Your specialty." "Brand identity and UI/UX, Haley answered, a little surprised by his interest. "I worked at Patterson and Brown for 5 years before they downsized last winter." Recognition flickered in his eyes. "They've done good work. Do you have samples?" Before she could answer, the food arrived. Charlotte dug into her nuggets, immediately absorbed. Haley hesitated, then pulled her tablet from her tote. "These are some of my recent projects," she said, unlocking it and sliding it across the table. Daniel took the tablet and began scrolling. The intensity he'd shown toward his laptop redirected onto her work, his face unreadable. Haley fought the urge to babble explanations. Instead, she watched him, and noticed more than his polished exterior. There were faint lines of fatigue at the corners of his eyes, a heaviness that felt like more than a stressful job. The wedding band on his finger was worn, its metal dulled by time. It looked too loose, as if he'd lost weight but couldn't, or wouldn't, change the ring. "This is very good," he said at last, stopping on a full rebrand she'd done for a local brewery. "Very good," he repeated, returning the tablet. "Why hasn't someone hired you already?" Haley took a bite of the sandwich he'd ordered, annoyingly delicious, and used the moment to gather her words. "The market's competitive, and I have limited availability." She nodded toward Charlotte, now coloring on a kid's menu. Single mom. Understanding dawned in his expression. No flexible hours. No remote work, he guessed. Most places want someone in office 9 to 6. Or later, Haley said. After-school care is expensive, and Charlotte's father isn't around. Something shadowed Daniel's face at that. He glanced at his expensive watch, then out at the window, where the rain had finally begun to ease. "Westbrook Industries is launching a new subsidiary," he said abruptly. "Sustainable housing developments. We need a distinct brand identity, separate from our corporate profile. Marketing is adequate, but this project needs a fresh approach." Haley put her fork down, heart picking up. "Are you offering me a job, Mr. Westbrook?" "I'm offering you a chance to pitch for a contract," he clarified. "We're interviewing design firms next week. I can add you to the schedule." Hope stirred in her chest, struggling past layers of hard-earned caution. "Why?" she asked quietly. "You don't know me." His gaze drifted again to Charlotte, humming softly as she drew. "I have a soft spot for determined single parents," he said. There was something in his tone, personal, edged, but before she could ask, he slipped a business card from his jacket. "Wednesday, 2 p.m. Ask for me." As she took the card, their fingers brushed. A jolt of awareness ran through her. She pulled back quickly, flustered. Daniel seemed unaffected, signaling the waitress for the check. "Thank you," Haley said, sincerity pushing past her suspicion. "I wasn't expecting this." "Don't thank me yet," he replied, slipping back into his cool business mode. "You'll be up against established agencies. They have more staff, more resources. The field isn't level." "It never is," Haley said quietly. "But that's never stopped me." As Daniel paid, she watched him watching Charlotte. His expression was oddly raw, something between grief and yearning, before he noticed Haley looking and smoothed it away. "I have to go," he said, closing his laptop and standing. "Meeting across town." "We should head out too," Haley agreed, gathering Charlotte's crayons. The rain stopped. "We need to catch the tea." Daniel hesitated, then pulled out another business card and scribbled on the back. "My personal number. If you have questions about the pitch. Or if you need anything before Wednesday." Haley accepted it, surprised. Before she could respond, Charlotte hopped down from her chair and ran around the table. "Wait," she cried. She wrapped her arms around Daniel's legs in a quick, fierce hug. "Thank you for the chicken nuggets, Mr. Westbrook." Daniel froze, clearly startled. For one brief second, his carefully composed features fractured, bare pain flashing through. Then he awkwardly patted Charlotte's head. "You're welcome, Charlotte." As he left the cafe, Haley stared after him, unsettled. A billionaire had just stepped into her life and offered her a chance that felt too big and too strange to be anything simple. And as she slipped his card into her pocket, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than a job opportunity. It was the start of something complicated. The Westbrook Industries headquarters speared upward into the Boston sky, 60 stories of glass and steel. Haley stood across the street, holding Charlotte's hand, craning her neck to take it in. "Is that where the rich man works?" Charlotte asked, squinting up. "Mr. Westbrook," Haley corrected gently. "And yes, that's his office." Is he gonna give you a job? Charlotte persisted. So we can buy a house with a garden for Rocket? Rocket, the imaginary dog who lived in every one of Charlotte's one-day stories. Haley dropped to one knee and smoothed a curl behind her daughter's ear. Remember what we talked about? I'm just meeting him today. It might not work out. And if it doesn't, we'll still be okay. It wasn't really true. Their one-bedroom in Somerville was cramped and overpriced. Rent had gone up twice this year. Freelance gigs barely covered basics. Her savings were practically gone. This pitch wasn't just another chance. It was a lifeline. After leaving Charlotte with their neighbor, Mrs. Rivera, Haley rode the subway downtown, clutching her portfolio like armor. She arrived 40 minutes early, palms damp. Security sent her to the 58th floor, where a minimalist reception area overlooked the harbor. The receptionist, a sleek woman with a razor-sharp bob, glanced up. I have a 2 o'clock with Mr. Westbrook, Haley said. Haley Bennett. The woman's eyebrows lifted. You're the independent contractor. The others are already in conference room C. She gestured down a glass-lined corridor. You can join them. Others. Haley had assumed a one-on-one meeting. Her stomach knotted as she walked past transparent walls that displayed executives in immaculate suits, deep in important conversations. Through the glass wall of conference room C, she saw 3 people at the table. 2 men, 1 woman. Presentation boards. Laptops. Printed mock-ups. No one looked like they'd taken the subway. She inhaled, squared her shoulders and stepped in. All 3 turned. Haley took in designer suits, expensive watches, that subtle air of confidence that came from knowing you belonged. Hi, she said, keeping her voice steady. I'm Haley Bennett. Bennett. The older man frowned, checking a printed schedule. You're not up until 2. I'm early. She slid into an empty chair. I thought we'd be presenting individually. The woman with the severe bun let out a light, tinkling laugh. Oh honey, it's a competitive pitch. We all present to the executive team at once. Didn't your agency brief you? I'm independent, Haley replied, refusing to flinch. Ah. The woman exchanged a look with her colleagues. Flying solo. How courageous. Before Haley could answer, the door opened again. Several executives filed in, led by a silver-haired woman with an icy gaze. Good afternoon. I'm Victoria Grant, CMO, she said without preamble. Mr. Westbrook sends his regrets, urgent business in New York. He's asked us to proceed. Haley's heart sank. Daniel had engineered this chance and he wasn't even here. We'll begin with Archer and Dean, Victoria said. The agencies went first, polished and seamless. Custom animations, graphs, research slides. Haley listened, a hollow pit widening in her chest. She'd done all-nighters at her kitchen table. They brought teams. When it was finally her turn, she stood on unsteady legs, connected her tablet to the projector, and forced her voice not to waver. I've taken a different approach, she began. One that centers community and sustainability over luxury. Her visuals unfolded across the screen. Approachable color palettes, human-focused imagery, branding that leaned into neighborhood identity and environmental responsibility rather than opulence. The executives watched with unreadable faces. Victoria's stylist moved occasionally over her tablet. No nuts. No fronts. Nothing. When Haley finished, silence pressed in. Thank you, Ms. Bennett, Victoria said at last. We'll be in touch by the end of the week. Outside, Haley leaned against a concrete planter, the city noise blurring around her. Why had she ever believed a chance encounter over coffee could alter her fate? She'd been ludicrously naive. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Rivera. Charlotte has fever. Come home. The sting of professional disappointment vanished beneath a rush of fear. Haley shoved off the planter and headed for the subway, heart pounding for a very different reason. By the time she reached their building, dread had fully settled. Charlotte rarely got sick, but when she did, it always hit hard. Mrs. Rivera met her at the apartment door, face lined with concern. Started feeling warm about an hour ago. I gave her Tylenol, but she's still hot. You should call the doctor. Charlotte lay curled on their sagging sofa, cheeks flushed, eyes glassy. Haley pressed her lips to her forehead and recoiled at the heat. Hey baby, she whispered, smoothing sweaty curls. Not feeling great, huh? My throat hurts, Charlotte whimpered. Dear. Patel's office couldn't see them until the next morning. Haley dosed more fever reducer, set up a nest of blankets, and prepared for a long sleepless night. By dawn, Charlotte's fever had climbed to 103, and angry red spots mottled her throat. Panic swept aside any worry about money. Haley called a cab to Boston Memorial, her maxed-out credit card burning in her wallet. The ER was packed. Haley filled out forms with one hand while Charlotte dozed and whimpered against her shoulder. After an eternity, a nurse called them back. Strep throat, the doctor confirmed an hour later. Nasty strain. Antibiotics, fluids, rest. At the pharmacy window, Haley's heart dropped at the price. Nearly $100. Her insurance deductible still loomed untouched. Can you bill me? She asked. I'm sorry, the pharmacist said. Payment is due at time of service. She was trying to mentally reshuffle which bill she could skip this month when her phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. Ms. Bennett, this is Mr. Westbrook's assistant. He was wondering why you missed your follow-up meeting this morning. Follow-up? Haley blinked. I didn't know about any follow-up. Mr. Westbrook specifically requested you at 9 a.m. to discuss your proposal. He's quite displeased. My daughter is sick, Haley said, too exhausted to soften her tone. I'm at Boston Memorial trying to get her medication. Please tell Mr. Westbrook I'm sorry, but my child comes first. One moment. The line went silent except for muffled voices. Then the assistant came back. Mr. Westbrook would like to know which pharmacy you're using. What? Why? He didn't say. Just the pharmacy name and your prescription details, please. Worn down, Haley rattled off the information. 10 minutes later, just as she was about to ask the pharmacist about payment plans, the clerk called her name. Ms. Bennett? Your prescription is covered. He handed her the bag. There's also a car outside waiting to take you home. Stunned, she stepped out the automatic doors. A black SUV idled at the curb. The driver opened the door with a small nod. Ms. Bennett? Mr. Westbrook asked me to drive you and your daughter. Too drained to argue, she climbed in, cradling Charlotte against her. As the car eased into traffic, her phone buzzed with a text. Get your daughter well. We need to talk. Your presentation was the only one worth considering. D.W. Haley stared at the words, emotions colliding. Relief, gratitude, wariness, and that strange unwelcome flutter that came whenever his name lit her screen. Mommy, Charlotte mumbled, drowsy with fever. Is the rich man helping us again? Haley looked out at the passing city. Yes, sweetheart, she said softly. It seems like he is. 3 weeks later, Haley sat at a sleek workstation on the 32nd floor of Westbrook Industries, still half convinced she'd wake up back in her cramped Somerville bedroom. After Charlotte recovered, Daniel had called personally. Not only had she won the contract for the sustainable housing brand, he'd offered her a 6-month position as design consultant, with flexible hours, remote options, and a salary over twice what she'd earned before. Ms. Bennett, Gretchen, Daniel's impeccably put-together assistant, appeared beside her desk. Mr. Westbrook would like to see you in his office. Haley saved her file and followed Gretchen to the executive floor. Despite working there nearly a month, she'd seen surprisingly little of Daniel outside of structured meetings. He gave clear feedback, stayed professional, and kept a polite distance, as if the easy intimacy of their first encounter had been a one-time thing. His office occupied the northeast corner of the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the harbor, sailboats scattered like white stitches across blue fabric. He stood with his back to the door, hands clasped behind him, staring out at the water. You wanted to see me, Mr. Westbrook? She asked, lingering just inside. He turned. Up close, the confident billionaire facade was cracked by exhaustion. Shadows beneath his eyes, tension along his jaw. Haley, he said. Come in. And please call me Daniel. He motioned to a seating area with 2 leather armchairs. Coffee? No, thank you. She sat, smoothing her skirt. Is there a problem with the project? Quite the opposite. He took the chair across from her. The board is very pleased. I wanted to discuss expanding your role. Her pulse kicked up. Expanding how? The sustainable housing division is growing faster than anticipated. We need someone to oversee all visual communications. His gaze held steady. I'm offering you a full-time position as creative director for Westbrook Sustainable Living. The words landed like a thunderclap. Creative director, she repeated. He nodded. Substantial salary increase, full benefits, equity options. He slid a folder toward her. Details are in there. Take your time. Haley opened it and scanned the offer. Numbers swam in front of her eyes. This wasn't just stability, it was transformation. A real home security for Charlotte's future. Breathing room for the first time in years. This is incredibly generous, she said. You've earned it, he answered simply. Your perspective has reshaped the entire initiative. Silence stretched, charged with something unsaid. Then he cleared his throat. How's Charlotte? Haley smiled. She's good. She asks about you. The rich man who likes chicken nuggets. A ghost of a smile crossed his face, then faded. I'd like to see her again. Properly. Haley studied him carefully. Office gossip had filled in the blanks. Widower, tragedy, family drama. The worn wedding ring she'd seen confirmed most of it. Perhaps, he continued, voice measured, you and Charlotte could join me for dinner this weekend. To celebrate the promotion, if you accept. Before she could answer, the office door flew open. A woman in her early 30s strode in, heels clicking sharply on the hardwood. She was stunning. Dark hair glossy and precise, features elegant and currently twisted with anger. Daniel, we need to talk. Now. She stopped when she saw Haley. Oh, she said, tone cooling. Didn't realize you had company. Daniel rose, his expression icing over. Vanessa. I thought you were in Paris. Clearly, she replied coolly. Who's this? Haley Bennett, one of our designers, he said, clipped. Haley, this is Vanessa Carlton. His sister-in-law, Vanessa added pointedly, extending a manicured hand. Charmed, I'm sure. Haley shook it, discomfort prickling. I should go. We can finish this later. No need, Daniel said smoothly. We were almost done. He turned back to Vanessa. My office. In an hour. I have meetings until then. Vanessa's perfect brows arched. Fine. 1 hour. She gave Haley a final, assessing once over and swept out. The silence she left behind was awkward and heavy. I'm sorry about that, Daniel said at last. Vanessa tends to be dramatic. It's fine, Haley said, standing and clutching the folder. About dinner? You don't have to decide now, he cut in. Think about the job offer first. She nodded, sensing the window for any personal connection had slammed shut. Thank you, Daniel, for the opportunity. Back at her desk, she tried to focus on layouts, but her thoughts kept snagging on Vanessa's introduction. Sister-in-law. Confirmation of a marriage ended in tragedy, and of lingering family tension. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Rivera. Pick up Charlotte early. Building manager inspecting apartments. Haley sighed. Another inspection. Their third this month. The management company had been hovering, clearly eager to flip the building or raise rents. When she arrived home, Charlotte and Mrs. Rivera were baking cookies, the kitchen filled with the smell of sugar and chocolate. Mommy, we made star cookies, Charlotte announced, face dusted with flour. I can see that. Haley kissed her sticky cheek. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rivera. Anytime, the older woman said fondly. Then more quietly, the inspector asked how long you've lived here. Wrote down everything. Be careful, dear. A familiar knot tightened in Haley's stomach. Their month-to-month lease meant they could be pushed out on short notice. Even with the current contract, Boston rents were brutal. That night, after Charlotte was asleep, Haley spread the job offer across the small dining table. The package glowed with possibility. A better apartment, a college fund, a vacation someday that didn't involve someone's borrowed cabin. But something about the timing nagged at her. The promotion. The sudden dinner invite. Vanessa's dramatic entrance. It all felt entangled. Her email pinged. New message. Notice of lease termination. Hands trembling, she opened it. 30 days to vacate. The building had been sold to be converted to luxury condos. New owner, Westbrook Capital Holdings. Her first reaction was disbelief, then outrage. Had Daniel known? Was this coincidence, consolation, or something more insidious? Her phone rang. Another unknown number. Hello, Miss Bennett. A woman's voice, smooth and faintly accented. This is Regina Westbrook. Haley blinked. I'm sorry, who? Daniel's mother. Confusion swept through her. Oh, yes. Hello. I understand my son has offered you a position, Regina said pleasantly. I'd very much like to meet you for tea tomorrow. There are things about the Westbrook family and the company that you should know before you decide. Alarm bells clanged in Haley's mind. How did you get my number? I have resources, Regina replied, still cordial but edged with steel. Shall we say noon? The Bristol Lounge. I'm not sure. It would be in your daughter's best interest, Regina added lightly. As well as your own. I slid down Haley's spine. How do you know about my daughter? Charlotte, Regina said smoothly. A lovely name. Noon, Ms. Bennett. I look forward to it. The line cut out. Haley sat, phone in hand, the room suddenly too small. First the job offer. Then the eviction. Now Daniel's mother, implying threats beneath civil words. A text flashed on her screen. Just heard about your building. I had no knowledge of the acquisition. Meet me tomorrow 9 a.m. at the office. We need to talk. Daniel, a second alert vibrated almost immediately. Unknown number again. Don't trust him. Whatever he's offering, there's a cost. Meet me for coffee tomorrow 10 a.m. Vanessa Carlton. Haley put the phone down and covered her face with her hands. 3 meetings. 3 Westbrooks. One day. She looked at the framed photo beside her bed, Charlotte, all wide grin and missing front tooth. Whatever the Westbrooks were playing at, Haley would protect her daughter. But first she needed to know exactly what she was up against. She opened her laptop and typed, Daniel Westbrook family. Headlines filled the screen. Westbrook heir loses wife and daughter in tragic accident. Regina Westbrook takes control of family empire. Following tragedy, custody battle looms. A.S. Carlton family challenges Westbrooks. Her breath caught. She clicked the first article and a photograph loaded. Daniel younger beside a smiling woman. In her arms, a little blonde girl with bright blue eyes and a dimple in her left cheek. The child could have been Charlotte's twin. Morning broke in streaks of red and gold as Haley stared out her kitchen window. Untouched coffee cooling at her elbow. She'd read everything she could about the accident. 5 years ago, a family boating trip off Cape Cod had ended in disaster. A sudden storm, a capsized vessel. Rescuers pulled only Daniel from the water. His wife, Catherine, and their 4-year-old daughter, Emily, were gone. Catherine's family had blamed him, particularly her sister, Vanessa, who'd filed a wrongful death suit claiming negligence. The case had been settled quietly. But the damage between the Westbrooks and the Carltons was public and ugly. And Emily looked eerily like Charlotte. Except Charlotte had nothing to do with the Westbrooks. Her father was Brian, a fading college memory who'd bowed out the minute pregnancy entered the picture. He'd vanished and never looked back. Mommy. Charlotte shuffled into the kitchen, unicorn pajamas wrinkled, eyes sleepy. Why are you up? Just getting ready, Haley said quickly, closing the laptop. We've got a busy day. How about pancakes? While Charlotte ate, Haley made her decision. She'd meet Daniel first, then Vanessa, then Regina. And by the end of the day, she'd know whether to run or negotiate. At Mrs. Rivera's door, Haley hugged Charlotte more tightly than usual. We might need to go on a little trip, she murmured, low enough that Charlotte wouldn't catch it. If I call you, can you help her pack a bag? Mrs. Rivera's eyes sharpened. Of course, dear. Whatever you need. The Westbrook lobby was unusually quiet at 8:55 a.m. Instead of sending her to the top floor, the receptionist escorted her to a private mezzanine conference room. Daniel stood by the window in the same posture she'd seen in his office. Back to the room, hands clasped, staring out like the view held answers. Thank you for coming, he said without turning. I imagine you have questions. You could say that. Haley stayed near the door, putting physical distance between them. We can start with why you didn't mention owning my building. Or why your mother called implying she knows what's best for my daughter. Or why you went after me in the first place. He turned slowly. His face was grave, stripped of charm. The acquisition was already in motion, he said. I'm not involved in every deal. My CFO handles most property investments. He raked a hand through his hair, the controlled gesture fraying. As for my mother, what did she say? That there are things I should know, Haley answered. That it's in Charlotte's best interest to meet her. Haley. She didn't have to spell it out. It was clear enough. She crossed her arms. She's not just inviting me for tea, Daniel. He flinched at the hard edge in her voice. My mother is protective. After what happened with Catherine and Emily. That's what this is about, isn't it? Haley cut in. Charlotte looks like your daughter. Daniel went utterly still. You know, she continued quietly. About the accident. About the lawsuit. About Emily. Her voice caught then steadied. What I don't know is what you want from us. For a long moment, the only sound was the muffled hum of the building's HVAC. When I saw you that day at the cafe, he said finally, voice low and rough, I thought I was hallucinating. The resemblance, it was like seeing a ghost. He walked toward the table but didn't sit, fingers gripping the back of a chair. I told myself I was just helping a talented designer who needed a break, he went on. That it was the right thing to do. But it was more than that, she said. Yes. He didn't look away. Being around Charlotte, it felt like getting a glimpse of the life I lost. Of who Emily might have become. Pain edged his words. I've been alone for 5 years, Haley. I have everything and nothing. The work, the money. It's all meaningless without someone to share it with. The vulnerability in his confession startled her. The hard-edged billionaire was gone, leaving a man hollowed by grief. I'm sorry, she said quietly, for your loss. But Charlotte isn't Emily. And I'm not your late wife. We can't fill those spaces for you. I know, he said quickly. Ido. I'm not trying to replace them. He drew in a breath, straightening back to businesslike. The job is real. You're good at what you do and the company needs you. I should have been honest about everything else. Haley glanced at the clock on the wall. Nearly 10. I have to go, she said. I'm meeting Vanessa. His expression darkened. Whatever she tells you, remember her family has been fighting for control of Westbrook Industries since before Catherine died. My wife's death gave them leverage. They've never forgiven me, or given up. And your mother? Haley asked. What does she want? My mother wants to protect the Westbrook legacy, he said. She sees threats everywhere. He stepped closer, stopping just short of touching her. She'll offer you money to leave Boston. A lot of money. The bluntness made her breath catch. And what are you offering? A future, he said steadily. For you and Charlotte. No conditions. No vanishing acts required. She wanted to believe him. But trust wasn't something she had in excess. I need to hear their side, she said. Then I'll decide. Her meeting with Vanessa was shorter, but sharp as broken glass. They sat in a corner of a small cafe 2 blocks from the tower, Vanessa immaculate even in casual surroundings. She didn't waste time on niceties. Daniel wasn't the same before the accident, she began, stirring untouched tea. Distant. Distracted. Late nights. Secret calls. Catherine suspected an affair. Haley kept her voice neutral. And then the boat trip. He knew she got seasick. Vanessa's mouth twisted. He pushed for it anyway. The weather was unstable. The storm was predicted. And somehow he's the one who makes it back. The investigation ruled it an accident, Haley pointed out. Money makes accidents convenient, Vanessa said flatly. And now. Her gaze sharpened. Now he's fixated on you. A young designer with no safety net. A child who looks exactly like Emily. You don't find that timing suspicious? A chill crept up Haley's spine. What do you want from me? Your honesty, Vanessa said. About his behavior. His interest in your daughter. The job offer tied to your proximity. She leaned in. Help me prove he's unfit to run the company, and I'll make sure you're well compensated. Haley stood. I'm not a piece in your corporate war. Vanessa's control slipped for a beat. He will devour you and your daughter and leave nothing. He did it to Catherine. The accusation followed Haley out the door, clinging like smoke. The Bristol lounge at the Four Seasons felt like another world entirely. Soft lighting, rich wood, the gentle hush of expensive discretion. Haley shifted in her chair, acutely aware of her off-the-rack dress amid tailored suits and couture. Regina Westbrook sat by the window, posture straight, Chanel suit immaculate, silver hair arranged in a precise chignon. Her smile as Haley approached was polished and cool. Ms. Bennett. She rose just enough to be polite. Thank you for coming. Tea arrived almost immediately, poured into delicate china cups. Regina wasted little time. I'll be direct, she said. My son has offered you a prominent role. Given circumstances, there are things you should consider. Circumstances, Haley repeated. My son's grief has defined the last 5 years of his life, Regina said calmly. Meeting you and your daughter has unsettled him. Deeply. And your solution? Haley asked. A new life, Regina replied, as though discussing a business merger. For you and Charlotte. A home in another city. A position in a respected Chicago firm. A trust, $2 million for Charlotte alone. The words landed like blows. In exchange, Regina continued, you cut ties with Daniel and with Westbrook Industries. Completely. So you want us to disappear, Haley said. I want my son to have a chance at healing, without confusing your daughter with the one he lost. Regina's gaze was steady, almost kind. Is it fair to Charlotte to grow up as a living echo of another child? For Daniel to see Emily every time he looks at her? That is not love, Ms. Bennett. It's projection. The question cut deeper than Haley wanted to admit. It echoed her own fears. Was Daniel seeing Charlotte? Or Emily? I need time, she said. Of course. But not too long. Regina slid a card across the table. The offer stands for 24 hours. By the time Haley picked up Charlotte from Mrs. Rivera's, her mind was buzzing with half-formed conclusions and competing narratives. The only thing she knew for certain was that she needed space to think. Picnic? She suggested, forcing cheer into her voice. In the park. Charlotte's eyes lit up. With cookies. With cookies, Haley promised. They grabbed sandwiches and juice and walked to the public garden, finding a patch of grass beneath a maple tree. While Charlotte chased butterflies, Haley lay back, eyes closed, letting the rustle of leaves and distant shouts of children blur into background noise. Regina's offer meant safety, but at what emotional cost? Vanessa's plan reeked of vengeance. Daniel promised something like hope, but was it hope for Charlotte or for his ghost? Mommy, look! Charlotte called. Haley sat up. Daniel was crossing the grass toward them, in jeans and a sweater instead of his unyielding suits. He looked younger, softer, still wary. I called your office, he said as he approached. They said you'd taken the day. He hesitated on the edge of their blanket. I hope I'm not intruding. We're having a picnic, Charlotte informed him solemnly. She held out a slightly squashed cookie. You can have one. Mommy says sharing is caring. His smile this time was unguarded. Then I'd be honored. He took the cookie with surprising care. Thank you, Charlotte. Haley watched him as Charlotte skipped away again. I met with your mother, she said quietly. And Vanessa. I assumed as much. He sat on the grass, leaving a careful gap between them. And they both made convincing cases, she said. In very different ways. They're very good at that, he said dryly. He watched Charlotte twirl after a butterfly, sunlight catching her curls like spun gold. May I offer one more perspective? He asked. Not as CEO. Not as Emily's father. Just as me. She hesitated, then nodded. I was drowning before I met you, he said simply. Before both of you. I existed. I functioned. But I didn't live. He drew a slow breath. You reminded me that I could feel something again that wasn't just grief. He turned to face her fully. I don't want to recreate my old life. I know I can't. I want to build something new. With you. With Charlotte. If you'll allow it. Something in Haley's chest, That space she'd carefully fortified with work and schedules and pragmatism shifted. The idea of a partner. A real family for Charlotte. A future that was more than scraping by. And your mother? She asked. Your sister-in-law? The company. They're important, he said. But not more than this chance. Not more than you. Or your daughter. He hesitated, then reached for her hand slowly enough that she could pull away if she wanted. Stay, he said. Take the job. Let me get to know Charlotte. Let me get to know you. No expectations. No promises I can't keep. Just possibility. Haley looked at their joined hands, then at Charlotte dancing in the dappled light, and finally back at Daniel. One condition formed in her mind, clear and solid. One, she said. You help us find a new apartment. Done, he said immediately. That you don't own, she added. For a heartbeat he stared at her, startled. Then he laughed, real relieved, almost boyish. The sound cut through the tension like sunlight. Charlotte sprinted back, breathless. I almost caught a butterfly, but I let it go. 'Cause butterflies don't like cages, she announced. That's very wise, Daniel said. Did you know there's a butterfly garden at the Museum of Science? Maybe we could all go this weekend. Charlotte's eyes went huge. Can we, Mommy? Please. Haley looked at her daughter's hopeful face, then at the man beside her who was offering more than money or a job. He was offering himself, imperfect and wounded but honest. The path ahead wouldn't be simple. Regina's disapproval. Vanessa's resentment. The tangled web of grief, power and expectation that came attached to the name Westbrook. But for the first time in years, the future didn't look like a problem to solve. It looked like a risk worth taking. Yes, Haley said, squeezing Daniel's hand. I think we'd like that very much. As the late afternoon sun bathed them in warm light, mother, daughter, and the complicated man who'd stepped into their lives over coffee and rain, Haley understood something new. Sometimes the most ordinary moments, a shared table in a crowded cafe, a child's impulsive hug, were the ones that opened the door to extraordinary second chances.